Hey everyone, it's RanDoM, aka Mark Random, stand-up comedian. I'm a performer, musician, novelist, philosopher. The reason I'm making this video is based on offensive comedy and how people seem to have been divided on the issue of what quote-unquote offensive comedy is. Comedy has been divided by two conflicting ideologies, and the paradox is that they're both right. One side believes the morally righteous thing to do is to never joke about horrific or traumatic things that happen in life, to always hold reverence to them and never talking about them in any way that isn't honoring them as sacred. The other group of people believe that there is power in reframing the narrative and trivializing it and mocking it. It's taking back power to just dehumanize the situation and let it go. The schism is you can't say one group is right or they're both right, and that's because of the paradox of life and death. All horror and tragedy in life comes from life being unknown, not knowing what happens when we die, what the meaning of life is or consciousness is. And in this, since we don't know that, we try to control how we feel, or we try to seek answers, or we try to make understandings of things. And the egolessness to just accept unknown determinism is just the energy. But humans are suffering because they don't have control and they don't want these sort of things to happen again. So we exist in a world where there's war, genocide, murder, starvation, rape, illness, poverty, terror, trauma, anger, rage, negative, dark, nightmarish energy. What happens in the unknown nature of life is it creates a paradigm of terror for survival and desire for survival, so all humanity is caught in this toxic cycle of fear and desire that biologically wired them from birth, and the existential unknown, what happens when we die, the meaning of life, only adds to that toxic cycle of fear and desire. Therefore, it creates this human's ego, which is the need to self-identify and or the need to self-preserve, and in that is the psychological makeup of not mocking those things or people who feel that way. What people don't give enough credence to is people who are triggered by jokes. Words are loaded because they outrage, they lash out, they have a volatile reaction because it triggers. But what I believe, and this is why I believe triggering is a good thing, is I believe that's healing. I believe comedy is supposed to be this psychic alchemy where if you go to a comedy show and they're talking about domestic violence, they're talking about cheating in relationships, they're talking about being betrayed, they're talking about murder, they're talking about AIDS, they're talking about politics, and one thing triggers you, you should be thanking that comic of like, they unveiled some psyche in your subconscious scar that you haven't fully dealt with or that you haven't fully understood why, and that's why you're having that reaction. I think we need to focus not on comedians to not say triggering things, but to honor what triggering is. It's an opportunity to grow. It's an opportunity to learn that we've taken these pre-selected narratives and attached them to our identity and ego. To truly be egoless is to just release it all and let it go. But the problem is our identity wants to hold on because we don't want our suffering to be all for nothing. If you're someone who survived something like a genocide or a Holocaust or raped your whole life, you don't want a comic to make it feel like it was all for nothing. You want to hold meaning to it. Whereas the other side is just realizing that the existence of life is to let go. We can't hold on to our trauma forever. You can't be remembered as a legacy, as a savior forever. You're just here temporary and we don't know the meaning of it and we have to let go. So what's happening when someone is triggered is it's like their psyche and their foundation of reality is starting to be torn. And that's not something to take lightly. I think in the media, we mock people who are triggered by jokes because we're like, grow thicker skin. But what's happening is their mind's like, oh my God, if that's wrong, then this is wrong and this thing. And then their whole fabric of reality and identity could tear apart, which we all need because it's all ego. It's not real. It all means nothing in the ever-flowing nature that we're all energy. But the problem is some people can't handle that. Being triggered by comedy and then delving deep into that is a psychedelic experience that you're reforming your identity. Everything you knew is wrong, or reality is changing in perceptions. your mind forms a cognitive dissonance to stop people from saying offensive jokes because in your mind, it's not healing. In your mind, it would be ego shattering. The way I see it is that sort of psychosis that makes you feel like everything is wrong to reevaluate is healing, because then you can grow from your trauma and you can move forward and become stronger for it. Reality is all in perception, and life is based on what we just collectively agree, and that's always subject to change. There's trillions of narratives, ideas, and perceptions, and none of them are real. They're all just subjective, because that's the sad reality. The truth is, there is no universal truth. It's all just collectively agreed upon, and if we have a lot of negative energy, these dark nightmares, our eros, our traumas, our fears, our addictions, our things we haven't dealt with, the way our mind chemically perceives that existence and these pre-programmed thoughts and associations, which is just we don't want that to be an illusion, but it is. So when that fabric starts coming undone, the reason I believe we should honor being triggered from comedy is one of the best things that could happen is it's unveiling your subconscious. The individual ego suppresses and creates a false ego and false identity and a false narrative that it tells itself, and then conflicted with opposing ideas, their fabric of reality comes down, and then they don't want that trivialized. They want their most painful, traumatic things in life, and that's also a sad reality, is let's say you've went through war and everyone's died, and you're a soldier of war for 20 years of bombs exploding, and you just suffer post-traumatic stress and panic attacks all day, is you don't want to realize that it only matters on this planet, in this universe, in this space, and outside to infinity, to atoms. It might as well just be in a petri dish. That's how much your life of sacrifice and determination and all the books you've read and all the training means. And that's a hurtful feeling they want to hold reverence for, because that's how they suit their narrative. Like someone who is a survivor of a horrific crime, they move with the narrative of I'm a survivor, I'm in power, I'm a survivor. So if a comic is telling a joke that unveils their ego to be you're not a survivor, you're weak and helpless, it kind of shatters them to where they have to go, oh my God, I don't want to accept the ego, which is just still an illusion, that I'm weak and helpless because of this event. So then it makes a conflicting paradox, which the ironic thing is, you're not a survivor or you're not helpless. Again, these are all just ego identities that we make. Triggering in comedy is psychic, because if you're triggered by a joke, it's unveiling things you weren't aware of. My comedy, at least, I hope to be empathetic, but also a psychic sort of alchemy cure for you. If you're triggered by my jokes, it should be a moment to grow and to learn and realize that you haven't dealt with this trauma, or you still have these terrors or these fears, and these are things that we can get better at. It's almost like training of self-empowerment, not only just to trivialize it, but to just keep reassessing it. Like if I've had a traumatic, violent experience, I want the jokes to trigger me. I want to keep reframing the narrative. I want to keep going around it and growing from it and learning to truly let that energy go, because that's what comedy is at the end of the day. It's taking all the things we're afraid of, all the pain, all the suffering, all the hate, all the negative energy that creates a nightmarish hell, and morphing it into a positive land of joy, humor, love, and harmony. And I think that's where people got mixed up, because unfortunately, many comics in the mainstream, and it's been promoted, are these like egocentric assholes that are just shitty and spiteful towards people, when the true purpose of comedy is to be empathetic, that we're all in this together. The reason I'm saying these offensive things is so we can all laugh. Everyone's in on the joke. Even if you're the butt of the joke, we're supposed to all be egoless, and that we're all butts of the joke at some point, and that's what brings us together. We've all slipped and fell or done embarrassing things, and that's the true essence of comedy that no one really talks about. Is comedy is supposed to be empathetic. Comedy is supposed to be bringing us together. And in the triggering offensive, somewhere ego got in the way. People who say offensive comic from ego are these people who they feel inferior, so they make jokes about these certain things to make themselves feel superior, and that's creating bad energy. You should be honoring and loving and enjoying and embracing the things you're making fun of. Every single subject I've ever talked about, it has always been with, in my heart, love and reverence and understanding and silliness and joy, and wanting to take all this pain and all this hate and all this terror, all this negative energy, and turn it into something joyful, happy, but also harmonious that we can all laugh at together. And that requires us letting go of our ego and just being one in a spirit, being one collectively in this sort of alchemy of just, we're going to laugh about this shit because life is fucking crazy. I believe my purpose is to spread this philosophy, this elixir, this love, but also the joke is on me because majority of my life I believed I was meant to be a savior. So imagine going your whole life thinking that you're literally the Messiah and everything you do in life is a sacrifice for this goal, and then you realize it was just an extreme psychotic episode. Then all that suffering was for nothing. Those 20-something years of all those places and scary situations and life or death events, it was all for nothing. But that's the point, and that's comedy is supposed to be, even if it's offensive or it's racial or it's hostile or it's aggressive, the overall energy is supposed to be, we're in this together. And I think it got mixed up because so many people get into comedy with the wrong intentions. They get into comedy for ego or fame or money or their own emotional dysfunction and just project their toxic bullshit on the world. And I've been guilty of that as well. Have you ever seen a comic that's actually miserable while telling a joke? It doesn't go over well. They have to be in a zen place of in the moment. And when you channel that sort of chi, you can just start morphing this alchemy to just make everyone laugh. We're all fucking ridiculous. We're all crazy and we're all silly. And that's the beauty of it. Rather than looking at the horror, it's a paradox because it's beautiful and horrible at the same time. It's in a comedic moment as we're bringing this collective energy is the very essence of life, is that paradox nature, is it's terrifying, but it's also loving. It's painful, but it's also joyful. It's hateful, but it's also peaceful, all in one, and it creates this schism. And the more we express the notion that comedy and triggering and offensive jokes are psychic alchemy to heal, I think the better our society will be, the more enlightened we'll be to the essence of why we're here in the first place as spiritual beings. And what we're going through, and comedy's sadly become a part of, is comedy has been weaponized to propaganda now to just reaffirm pre-programmed cultural norms to keep you inside the box. Comedy has been weaponized to be a culture war for the narrative communication war, which is, and this is the paradox because, again, both are right, which is, if masses of humanity can't see things that way, then speech has to be controlled. And it's like, who decides what controlled? Because if there's millions of narratives and they're allowed to go free, then millions of people will do things that will eventually end up harming people. So then people say you have to control the narrative. And then the outskirts of offensive comedy are seen as horror and darkness, and you need to cancel that and destroy that and make that not a part of your life. But it's also unveiling the true nature of humanity, which is we're flawed. The internet age and the social media age where everything exists forever, people try to give an image of perfection, so they try to act like things don't happen. And this is where people have just kind of become pathologically psychotic. It's like when you see Democrats and Republicans, they'll shame the other group for what the same thing people in their group do. It contradicts itself, and it's both hypocritical. They feel like they have to they're too far in with their ego, so they have to keep going, and they can't ever come to the resolution because it's about fear and condemnation. No one can ever see that. So now comedy is just seen as this robotic programming narrative, and anything else that conflicts with that is seen as either harmful or a different ideology, when the truth is it's about energy. It should be about love. It should be about compassion. If I make fun of different races or genders or sexual ethnicities, it's because I've taken the time to truly understand what it's like to be them, to empathize with them, to think about their life and struggle. Anyone who says triggering comedy shouldn't exist already has an ego complex, and that's something that comedy is supposed to get rid of. In comedy, you're not supposed to, or just in love and nature and universal eternal, you're not supposed to have a feeling of inferior or superior, but people get, because biological fear and desire, insecurity to their ego, so they feel if I'm mocking a different race or religion or gender or group of people, it's because I think I'm better, or society would look look at one as better or worse, and it's not. It's just we're both the same and we're both different. So I'm laughing with you and trying to understand. The intention is not to hurt. The intention is to heal. It's just this whole society has been programmed to think that healing is hurting, pre-programming your ego of more fear and more desire and more attaching your ideology. I think in terms of preaching enlightenment, social media has done a huge disservice by just reaffirming the narrative of no matter what your ideology is, to just attach it to your identity and to never question it and to echo chamber yourself. I mean, literally, people are just on their phones interacting with other people without any kind of context to what the other person's tone is. The average life is 60 to 70 years, 365 days, 24 hours. So just mathematically, 400 estimated hours of living, breathing, thinking, planning, acting, interacting, sleeping, growing, learning, making mistakes, doing good, doing bad, experiencing, figuring out life, humanity's collective perception, formulating a narrative that visuals and texts on the internet doing research could never comprehend. You could never judge someone based on 10 years of what an entire life would be. Social media has trained people to program themselves to attach their identity to these frigid ideologies that could be deconstructed. I tell you, we need love, we need compassion, but it's in energy, it's in feeling. If you watch videos of my stand-up comedy, you're going to perceive it from your pre-association narrative based on your environment and based on culture and based on what the media is programmed. You're not going to feel the energy and the vibration and frequency that I'm giving off to you, which is love, compassion. We're all in this together, egoless liberation. And this is Mark RanDoM's comedy philosophy, that comedy, or at least my soul, my intent is to have it as an alchemy elixir, to be offensive and triggering so we can unveil all our dark shadows and heal that, so we can take negative fear, pain, hateful, dark energy and transform it like alchemy into joy and laughter and letting it go and moving forward as humanity. Love and compassion and egoless spirit of we're all one is loving everyone by understanding it.